Hi there, today I'm going to show you how to make these little beaded ghost fringe earrings. And they actually come together pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. The first thing we're going to do is do some brick stitch on this top portion and add a bead loop. And then we're going to add our fringe here. So the supplies that you're going to need are very minimal. You need some beads, and I'm working with Miyuki size 11-0 seed beads. So in my opinion, these are the most uniform in size and shape you're going to find, and so it's going to give you the best result, especially with the bead weaving portion up here. The colors I'm using a matte cream color, but you can use any white or cream or any color really that you'd like. And I added some of my bead mixes in the fringe here to add some color and make them a little more festive. This one I used my Fall Fest mix, and in this one here I used my Bewitched mix, and in this tutorial I'm going to use my Sweet Topaz mix. As far as thread, I'm using Miyuki nylon beading thread. You don't need Miyuki thread, but I do recommend a nylon beading thread as opposed to a thermally bonded thread like Fireline, which is a little more rigid, and it won't, the fringe won't lay as nicely as it does with a nylon thread. Then you'll need some scissors to cut your thread, a beading needle, and some ear wires we have here. And these ear wires, actually, I won't need to use pliers to open and close, but a lot of ear wires you do. So if you're using ear wires that do require the pliers, then you'll also need a pair of pliers. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is cut about an arm span and a half of your thread and thread your needle. Get this stuff out of the way here. And then we're going to pick up 4 of our white color beads to start, and you'll want to slide those down where you're leaving yourself about an 8-inch, at least an 8-inch tail on one end. And then with these beads, it's really hard with the white to see, with the light, I'm sorry. You're going to go up the first 2 white beads like so, and I'm gonna just put my finger over those 2 white beads and hold the thread and pull. So it's just holding those beads in place while I pull, and when you do that, you should get something that kind of looks like this, where you have 2 sets of beads right next to each other. Okay. So then we're going to take the thread and go down into this kind of second column here. I'm holding the beads with my finger so they don't fly all over the place while I pull, and I give a really nice tug. So then we have it looking like this. Okay. And then I'm going to go just back up. I'm just kind of securing this start here, going back up through the first column and pull, give a really nice tug, and then back down through the second column there and give a good tug. Okay, like so. So give me 1 second here, my thread came off of my needle. Okay, sorry about that. So actually I'll put one of these little guys out so we can kind of see the pattern as we're going along in the tutorial as well. Okay, so we're just going to keep adding columns. So we have 2 here. So now we're just going to pick up 2 beads. Okay. And we want to go in the opposite side, so the thread's coming out this side, so we want to go in the opposite side that the thread is coming out of, and pull. I'm holding these with my fingers, and I'm gonna pull. And what that's gonna do is line up another column right next to it. And to secure that, then we're gonna go, threads coming out this side. Now we're gonna go in the same side into those beads that you just added. And I pull pretty, give a good tug there. So now you have 3 columns. Okay, you can adjust the beads with your fingers to flatten them out. And there we have 3. So we're just going to keep doing that until we have 9 columns. So I'm going to pick up 2. Okay, and I'm going to go the opposite end that the thread's coming out. So the thread's coming out this end. So I'm going to go in the bottom this time and hold it with my fingers and pull. Okay. Now I want to go in the beads I just added from the same side as the threads coming out. So I'm going down these here, like so. And I'm gonna just hold with my fingers and pull. Now we have 4. So pick up 2 more. Okay, opposite end. So we're going down, pull. Oh, my fingers in the way. And same side. So I'm going up this time. And I'm gonna pull all the way through and make sure that's really nice and snug and tight. So let's keep going. So that's 5. Pick up 2, opposite end. So I'm going up and pulling all the way through. Okay. And now we're going to go down. Let's see. Wow, the lighting with white is bad. Okay, and then we're going to go pull that nice and tight. Make sure these are all nice and aligned. So we got 6, 3 more to go. Pick up 2, go down. So, and then go up. These 2, and pull. Okay, and 2 more. So the thread's coming out this side, so I'm going to go the opposite and pull that. And now I'm going to do the same side. Those. And pull. Okay, so now we have 8, and we need 1 more. So there's 8 there, and 1 more. Pick up 2, go in the opposite end, so it's coming out this way, so this time I'm going to go in the top. So you'll notice it's going to alternate every time, whether you're going in from the top or the bottom. Pull that, and then we're just going to go up to secure that. Okay, so this is what you now should have, 9, like a double row here. So that's double ladder stitch there, and you should have 9 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is my tail thread over here, and then my working threads coming out here. So let's keep building up the bricks. Now we're going to brick stitch on top of our foundation row here. So to do that, you're going to pick up, to start, we're going to pick up 4 beads, 4 of our white color. Okay. And then we're going to use these thread bridges. So you can see there's thread bridges between these beads here. So we're going to use those thread bridges. So we're going to skip one and we're going to go under with our needle the second thread bridge. See that? I probably should have used some dark thread here. And then you pull your needle all the way through. The beads are going to kind of sit on top of the beads like so. And you're going to go up through these 2 on the left. Okay. And hold it with your fingers and pull. Okay, and then you're going to go down the 2 on the right, like so, and pull. And then we're going to go back up the 2 on the left. Let's see, like that. And when we do that, that's going to kind of pull everything nice together. There we go. And give that a good tug. Oops, except my thread got tangled around. That's why it wasn't sitting so nicely. There we go. So now we're ready to add more beads. Okay, so we're just going to continue using all the thread bridges in this row. So we have thread bridge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're just going to be adding beads to those 6, using those 6 thread bridges. And you'll see in the pattern we have 2 columns, and then now we need to add the eyes here. So I'm going to go ahead, and in this one I used black with my bead mix. In the other one I used the darkest color in the bead mix for the eyes and the mouth. So I'm going to do that here. So I'm going to pick this kind of dark brown color out of my mix. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that next thread bridge. I'm going to go underneath it. And I'm going to pull this through. And then I'm going to go up those 2 beads and pull. Okay. So now I have, if we look at the ghost, we have 2 more white columns in between the eyes. So I'm going to pick up 2 of the white, and I'm going to use the next thread bridge. I'm going underneath that thread bridge, trying to make it as easy as possible for you to see, and pulling the thread all the way through, and then going up the 2 beads that you just added, and pulling and giving a good tug to secure those beads. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to do 2 beads using the next thread bridge, going under that thread bridge and pulling, and then going up the 2 beads that you just added and pulling that all the way through, giving a good tug. Now we got to add some more eyes. Add the other eye. So I'm going to pick up 2 of the darker color that I used, and I'm using the next thread bridge right there between those 2 beads, and pulling all the way through, and then going up through those 2 beads you just added. And now we have 2 more thread bridges, one here, one here. So let's pick up 2 white, go under the thread bridge, pull all the way through, go up the 2 beads you just added. So I'm kind of moving a little faster as it's really just repetition. I'm gonna pick up 2 more, go under this last thread bridge, okay, and then go up the last 2 beads you added. I kind of always cover and hold with my fingers to kind of hold the beads in place when you pull so it doesn't fly out of your hands. Okay, so this is what you should have now. Okay, so we just added 2 at a time, and that was double brick stitch or a 2-drop brick stitch. Now this part, the rest of the way, we're going to do a single brick stitch or 1 drop for the rest of the top of the ghost here. So what we're going to do is we are going to start, instead of with 4 beads like we started this row, we're just going to start with 2. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to skip this first thread bridge and we're going to go to the second thread bridge. So it's between the white and this eye here. So you're going to go under that thread bridge right there. Okay, and then pull all the way through. Okay, kind of situate those to sit on top. And you're going to go up the bead on the right and pull, and go down the bead on the left and pull, and up the bead on the right and pull. Okay, so that starts that next row. So now we're just going to add 1 bead at a time using all the rest of the thread bridges. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thread bridges in this row. So we're just going to add those 5 beads. So we're going to pick up 1 at a time now, and we're going to go under the next thread bridge and pull. And same thing, we're going to go up that bead that you just added. The only difference is now we just have 1 bead as opposed to 2 beads. I'm holding my fingers on top and pulling, so, and give a good tug. Okay, so let's just keep adding. Go under the next thread bridge, pull, and go up the bead you just added. Okay, and pull. So now we have 4 there. Okay, let's pick up another white and go under the next thread bridge, pull, and up through the bead and pull, and pick up another bead under the next thread bridge, pull, and then go up and pull that through nice and snug. And one more, go under the last thread bridge in this row and pull that, and then go up. And pull. Okay, so we just finished a single row above the eyes. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more rows here. So we're going to do exactly what we just did on this last row. We're going to start with 2, and we're going to skip the first thread bridge, go to the second thread bridge, go under that, and pull. Okay. Then you want to go up the bead on the left and pull. Down the bead on the right and pull. And then up the bead on the left. Okay, and pull. Then now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more thread bridges in this row. So we're going to add 4 more beads. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start going a little more quickly through here since it's the exact same thing. We're going under the thread bridge and then up through the bead that you just added. Okay. One more bead, this last thread bridge. Okay, now I'm ready to start the next row. And I'm going to do that by picking up 2 of my white. I'm going to skip the first thread bridge and go underneath the second thread bridge. Then I'm going to go up through the bead on the right. And pull that down through the bead on the left, like so, and pull that, and then up through the bead on the right. So that starts this next row, and now we have 3 more thread bridges, so I have to add 3 more beads. So going under the thread bridge and then up through the bead, same as we've done on the last 2 rows. Okay, so now we are ready to start the next row. So I'm going to get 2 beads, skip the first thread bridge, go to the second thread bridge, go underneath that second thread bridge, and pull. Go up the bead on the left here, down the bead on the right, and up the bead on the left. This is exactly what we've done the last 3 rows now with the single bead. And pull, make sure that's secure. So that started the next row. And now we have 2 thread bridges left here. Sorry, it's so hard to see with these white beads, but you can see we have a thread bridge here and here. So we have 2 more. So let's go ahead and pick up 1 bead and add beads using those thread bridges as we've done. Okay. And then 1 more. Oops. Slipped out of my hands. Okay. So now we have 1 more row to make. So before we do our thread loop, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick up 2. I always use 2 when I start a row, and I skip a thread bridge. So I'm gonna skip the first one, go to the second one, and I'm gonna pull through. We're gonna go up through that bead we just added on the right, go down the bead on the left, and then up the bead on the right. Okay. And now we just have 1 more thread bridge in this row. So we just need to add 1 more bead to that thread bridge. Secure it. And now we're done with our brick stitch. So now we're going to add this bead loop here on the top. So what you'll want to do is pick up 6 of your white beads, or you could use a different color if you'd like. Okay, so I have 6 my white beads, and my thread's coming out here. I'm going to go into this bead on the other end of the row. So you can see here, so it's coming out here. I'm going to go in this bead here. Okay, so I'm going to go down through that bead and pull. Okay, that'll make my loop. Okay, so I want to reinforce that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave the thread so that I can come out here on this bead so I can go back through the loop. Okay, so my thread's coming out here. I'm going to go down, and how you get there doesn't really matter as long as you get there, but I'm going to go down this bead here. Okay. And I'm going to pull that. So now the thread's coming, so you won't be able to see the thread because it went from this bead to this bead here. So I'm going to then go up through this next bead here and then up into this bead, and that'll get me to be able to go back around. Okay, so I'm going to go up this bead here, so you want to do it in a way where you won't see the thread, and then I'm going to go up this bead here. It's hard. It's hard to, my needle won't just go up that one bead. It wants to start going into the bead loop, which is actually fine. So I'll just let that. So I'm going up into there and I'm starting to go through the bead loop again. Okay, I give it a nice little tug. And then I'm just going to go all through all these beads again in the bead loop. So I went through those two. I'm going to go through the next two. And then I'm going to go down again, the last two here. So I'm going down those two right there. Okay. So now I've gone through that bead loop twice. You can do it 3 times if you'd like, if you feel more comfortable with having it. I at least do 2. And the bead loop, you'll be able to adjust, kind of adjust with my needle to round it out. So you can kind of adjust it until it looks good to you. All right. And so now what I want to do is I want to get the thread, I want to weave the thread down so that it's coming out right here, so that I can start adding my fringe. Okay, so basically you're just going to kind of want to weave on a diagonal. So I'm going to go down this bead here. Okay, so I'm coming out here, and then I'm going to go down on a diagonal, this next bead here, and pull that. Okay, how you get there is again not as important. So then I'm going to go up through this bead next to it. And I'm going to pull. Okay, so now I'm going to go down this bead here and then just down all these beads on the edge till I get to the end. Okay. Just straightening out my bead loop there. All right, so now I'm going to go down, and you can put your needle through as many of those beads as once that are along the edge, so that it could save you some time of getting down to the corner here. Okay. So now I have my tail thread coming out here and my working thread here. I'm just going to adjust my bead loop, which you can do that at the end as well. And then I'm going to start adding fringe. Okay. So what I did with the fringe is I kind of alternated lengths, and I like that look, which you can do all the same length if you prefer. So with the outer edge was shorter here, so I did 15 of the white, 5 of my bead mix, and then 1 more white at the bottom. And I like that because adding the white at the bottom, because then the thread, you don't see the thread as much against the white bead at the bottom there. So I'm going to pick up 15 beads, and then I'm going to pick up 5 of my bead mix, and then 1 more white. Okay, and then I'm going to slide that down to meet portion of my ghost. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip this white bead here. I'm going to move that out of the way. And then I'm going to thread my needle back up through all of the fringe and the 2 beads of that first foundation row. And I'm going to pull that all the way through. Okay, I usually like to lay my fringe down and then hold this end here and kind of pull until you get it up against and there's no gaps in the beads, but you don't pull too tight here, so that make sure this is laying nice and straight. Okay, so the tension on the fringe is kind of sometimes the hardest part on these. So then we're going to go down the next set of 2 beads in the foundation row so that we can add the next strand of fringe. Okay, so I kind of pull that so that it like snaps a little, but then I kind of massage the fringe, make sure that it's not curling up and that it's nice and straight. Okay, so then we're gonna, this time I go add 2 more beads, so I'm gonna pick up 17 white before my 5 of my bead mix. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up 17. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up 5 of my bead mix. And then 1 more white. And put those beads down to meet the rest. Okay. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to skip that first white bead and thread your needle back up through all of the beads, and including the 2 beads in that foundation row. Okay. And then pull that all the way through. So you can see my thread kind of bunched up here, so I just hold this end here and pull on this side, and that kind of straightens everything out. Okay, at all times I'm kind of adjusting my fringe, making sure it's not loose, but it's not curling up and it's nice and straight. Okay, so that's something you do throughout the entire process, and again at the end before you tie everything off. So then we're going to go down the next column in the foundation row. Okay, and pull that so we can add our another layer of, or strand of fringe. So I pulled that to give, so that the thread does go fully into the beads, and then you can see these kind of curled up a little when I did that. So then what I do is I kind of massage these and loosen them up a little so that I get a little slack, and then I can get them laying nice and straight again. Okay, so I do that every time. So now we're going to go back doing the 15 white before the 5 of the bead mix, and we're going to alternate. And when we get to this middle column right here, we're going to add 2 beads for the mouth. So let's pick up 15 and then 5 of our bead mix here, and 1 white. Skip the last white bead, thread the needle up through all the beads, including the 2 in the foundation row, pull that, make sure it's nice and straight, and then go down the next 2 beads. Okay, so you'll see, like, if I don't pull all the way through, you'll see that thread right there. So I do pull that so that that thread then gets hidden, but you'll notice when I do that, this kind of curls up. So this is then where you need to adjust and you can kind of massage like this or kind of on the thing, but you want to do it until, so that you don't see that thread, but that these are nice and straight. Okay, and so that takes practice. So now we're going to do another 17 and 5 of our bead mix. And 1 white. Throw those down. That was a 17. One with 17 whites. And then skip the white, go all the way up. Go up through these, the 2 in the foundation. And pull. Okay, make sure everything's straight. Go down the next 2 in the foundation. Oops, good. Okay, pull that down so that you don't see the thread. And then go ahead and massage to add a little bit of slack. So make sure everything's nice and straight. Okay, so this one we need to now add the mouth here. So I'm going to start with 2 of the dark color that I used, and then I'm going to add 13. So it's 15 minus 2 of the white. And then 5 of my bead mix and 1 white. Okay, then we're going to skip that white. And go up like we've done all the other ones. And then go down the next column in the foundation row. Make sure that thread gets hidden, but that all the strands of fringe are nice and straight and not crunched up. Okay, so go ahead and keep doing that for the rest of the 4, alternating. So the next one's going to be 17 white, 15, 17, and then you're going to end on 15. And then I'll show you how to finish it off once we get to the other end. Okay, so I have 1 more strand of fringe to add here. So this last one is 15. Pick up all my beads, thread those down. So you're gonna kind of have to work around the tail thread. I'm gonna skip this last bead, go up all the beads, including the 2 in the last row, in the foundation row, and pull that tight. There we go. We have all of our fringe done. So now what you want to do is you really want to adjust your fringe and make sure that all the strands are laying nice and straight. They're not too loose, but none of them are curling up. Okay. So I do that mostly by, if they're curling up, I kind of massage a little to kind of release a little tension. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a knot, a hitch knot. So there's thread that's kind of going through all these beads here. So I'm going to actually kind of put my needle between that bead, so it's going to go, it'll be kind of behind that thread that's going through the center of those beads. And I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to get this little loop, and I'm going to put my needle through that loop and then pull. That's going to create a knot right there. Okay. Don't pull super tight yet. I pull it, and then I kind of make sure my fringe is good, and then I kind of pull a little more. Okay, always checking to make sure my fringe is good. So then what you want to do is you have the thread coming out here. I'm just going to kind of weave around a bit. So one thing you could do is, if you don't like to do knots, you could just keep weaving the beads. So I'm taking my thread, I'm going up. So I kind of flipped it over to the other side. And then I'm just pulling the thread. Of course, I just got it tangled. Basically what I'm trying to do is, there we go, I got my fringe and the tail thread stuck in there. So just trying to get those things out of the way. Okay. So I'm trying to basically, now that I have that knot there, I'm just weaving the bead, weaving the thread, so that I can then come down some of the one piece of fringe and cut it. So I went up these two beads. Now I'm going to go down the next two beads. And then I'm going to go down this corresponding strand of fringe, a bunch of beads, doesn't need to be exact, and pull that. And then I'm going to snip it. So my thread's coming out of the fringe here. So that'll hide it nice and well. Nice and good. Okay. Now we just kind of need to do the same thing with the tail end. So I took the needle off of my working thread, and I'm gonna thread my needle onto the tail end. Okay, so the tail end's coming out here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go up these two beads. Oops, sorry. I caught my fringe again. All right. And now I'm actually going to go up another two beads on this side. And pull. Okay, so now I'm going to use the thread that's coming out between these two beads here. So I'm going to go kind of behind those two beads, like so. And I'm going to pull until I get a loop there. And I'm going to go through that loop and pull. And that's going to create a knot right there. So now I just want to thread the thread down into some fringe. So I'm coming out of here. I'm going to go down this next bead right here. Then I'm going to go diagonally down this bead here. And pull. This is why you need to leave a decent sized tail. Now we're getting to the double brick stitch part, so we got to go down 2 at a time. So I'm going to go down these 2 here next to the eye. And pull that. And then I'm going to go down these 2 and then through some of the fringe, the one that has the mouth on it. Doesn't have to be exact of how many beads that you go down in the fringe. It's just so that we hide that thread. Okay, so now I have my thread coming out of the bottom or of this fringe here, and so I'm just going to cut that excess. And that's it. Here we have our little ghost. You can adjust the bead loop to round it out a little more if you'd like. And what you'll do with how you'll attach the ear wire, so you'll put it on the little hook. So in this case, and then with these, you can just use your fingers to close it. It is a little tight, but it does work. And but you can use pliers as well. So, whoops, I got it. You want it to go in between so that, no, I'm gonna have to use pliers to open it up. You want the ear wire to sit between the beads here, so that you have 3 on each side. So it's in the center, because we put 6 beads on. So you want it to go between, so you have 3 on this side and 3 on this side. So that's where you want it to sit on the thread before you close it. Okay. So you can see, oops. See there, now I have 3 on each side. So there we have our little fringe ghosts. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.